facing dog. So the key thing here that we want to remember is the shoulder wrap. Okay, so how I like to describe it is closing the armpits. So I'll wrap my arms and then close the armpits like this. Okay, so instead of letting the armpit be open, close the armpit. Okay, so we'll all practice that before we even go to down dog. I'll turn around so you can see. Okay, hey, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing with your followers, Ginger. I appreciate it. Okay, so arms up. So instead of being here with the armpits open, we'll wrap the shoulders and close the armpits. And then see how my hands actually turn to face behind? Because I can wrap my shoulders pretty far. But once you get on the floor, it'll be a little bit different once your hands are on the ground. So you can just turn so that the palms face each other. Okay, and then notice also that I have a lot of space here. So whenever I wrap the shoulders, I'm not going like this. Okay, so they're down and wrapped. And then squeeze them in. So then the other thing that you can start to get is what they call square neck. So that's here, and then whenever you're like this, but the arms, they're kind of loose, they're not in the joint. So yes, you do that, but then squeeze them in. Okay, so we want to try to do that on our hands and knee, or on in our down dog. So what we'll do is come to our mats and come onto our hands and knees. And you can actually watch me demo this one first. Okay, so what I'll have you do is super slow motion. So we've all practiced this a couple times, right? The shoulder wrap. Okay, now watch me whenever we're in down dog. We'll do it super slow-mo. So spread the fingers apart, point your finger knuckles, or point your fingers are pointing forward. Okay, now we'll bend the elbows out to the sides, and then slowly roll the elbows back and straighten the arms, squeezing the shoulders into the joints. Okay, so watch the difference here. This is what we don't want. Okay, so go from here to bend the elbows, roll the shoulders back, freeing up the neck, straightening the arms and squeezing the shoulders into the joints. Okay, so we got that part. So you can go ahead and try that a couple times. We want to make sure to keep the pointer finger knuckle. Whenever we wrap like this, our inner hands tend to turn up like this because all of the weight's going into the outside edges of the hand whenever we wrap. So the upper arm, yes, that's going to be wrapping this way, okay, but then this part of the arm will be wrapping this way. So it'll be wrapping towards your pointer finger knuckle and your thumb, okay? So here, upper arm wrapping this way, okay, and then forearm will be wrapping inward, okay, so that the pointer finger knuckle and thumb knuckle stay heavy. Okay, so that's that part. There's so much to downward facing dog, you guys. All right. So now that we've got that part down, okay, what we want to focus on now, what I look for in my students is that they have a 90-degree angle here. Okay? So sometimes people would be trying to get their heels down and it rounds their upper back, pushing their shoulders forward. So I say take your feet a couple inches back, bend your knees, you can bend the knees. Now I'll push into my hands, into the pointer finger knuckle and thumb knuckle especially, pushing my hips back towards the back of the room, okay? And I usually tell them where like the ceiling meets the wall. That's a good place to be pushing your hips towards, okay? So right there, if you need to keep a bend in your knees, that's fine, okay? And especially if you lock your knees like me, you'll have a slight bend in the knees. All right, so I'm looking for the 90-degree angle. Now, for beginners, what I'll tell them to do is to push your chest towards your legs. Okay, so watch this cue here. So I'll tell them, push your chest towards your legs. So instead of being here, bend the knees, pushing the chest towards my legs, so that now I'm in a straight line from my wrists all the way to my hips. So I don't have an angle here. Okay, I'm straight. But once you've been practicing for a while and you hear that cue over and over and over, your down dog might look like this. Okay, and that's what we don't want. And then you're dropping into the shoulders here and they're not engaged anymore. So for students that are starting to bring the crown of the head towards the ground, I'd say to lift up, wrap the shoulders, and bring your low ribs in slightly, like knit your ribs in. Okay, so once you've been practicing for a while, you're really bendy, you don't need to be trying to do this anymore. Lift up, wrap the shoulders, engage the abs. Okay, so I don't teach it with the heels down. You don't necessarily need the heels down. Eventually, they'll start to come down. But what you want to look at is look at your ankles and your heels, or the front of your ankles, and see if you have any wrinkles there in your ankles. Okay, so if you're jamming your heels down into the ground, you're probably going to have a lot of wrinkles there. So you want to try to lift the front of the leg, push the booty out a little bit. So I'm tipping my tailbone, or tipping my pelvis forward, and that'll actually help to lengthen the front of the leg and help to create space here in the ankle. Okay? All right, so I think that that's enough tips for one little session for downward facing dog. But there's really so much to learn in downward facing dog, and there's so many benefits. So I hope that you practice, 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 share this with all of your followers, and continue on the amazing 30 DYC Yoga Challenge. Thank you guys.